Welcome to Real Estate Success DFW, the podcast where top producing agents from Dallas-Fort Worth come together to share their stories and strategies behind their success. I'm Shaune Corbett, your host, and with over 300 million sold in the local real estate market and the honor of being best of breed multiple times, I know what it takes to make it in this market. Each episode, we're going to dive into the world of real estate, learning from the very best in the industry. If you're ready to level up your game, we're in the right place. Let's get started. Hey everyone, Shaune Corbett here with Real Estate Success DFW. I have Evan Downey with me. How are you, Evan?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Shaune.
I always like doing interviews with people that refer to me that have a really strong history, and I know that they've got a strong presence. They've sold a lot of real estate. So you're actually a referral to me to someone we both know. And I'm super excited to be able to talk with you. And you and I have already talked offline. So I'm going to have kind of a direction we're going. And I think there's going to be a good value add for our audience once we get through all of this. So are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it.
I always like to do not a whole introduction about everything about you, but you're in real estate. We're talking to real estate agents. What got you into real estate?
Yeah, so my whole career has been in sales. I started door to door selling copiers for Xerox in Dallas. And it was great and had a lot of fun just learning how to sell, cold call, getting kicked out of buildings. It was a blast. But I just knew I was projecting into the future and saying, well, okay, our copier is going to be a real great future. What's the future of copiers looking like? And so I realized that no, I need to get into something that is, first of all, exciting, because real estate's exciting. It's always changing. And also something that has a future. And my dad, he's been a real estate broker since the 70s. And so he started his career selling land in Grass Valley, Northern California, to people living in the Bay Area, San Francisco, wanting to get out to the countryside and the mountains and get some land and develop it. And so I grew up in that background. And I thought, well, I like sales. Why not get into real estate? Did it part-time for 4 years. And then it did so well that I quit my sales job and just went all in.
I think all of us can appreciate the office and paper products that are different, being in the copier business, right? So I don't know. It's the only thing I kind of think about is the paper business back then. But you're right. There's going to be a point where we can't buy expensive copy machines where almost everything is moving digital.
Oh yeah.
Not much of a need going forward. So it was good foresight. How long have you been in real estate?
About 8 years. I became a real estate broker about 2 years ago. And I've only been full-time for about 4 years.
Okay. If you could think about your ideal person, we use the term avatar as an ideal client, who do you think kind of speaks to you? Do you sell more to? It could be new build, it could be first-time home buyer, it could be military. What really rings to you when you're out there and you're connecting with your audience? Who do you think is your avatar type buyer or seller? Who's your ideal client?
I'm pretty 50-50. Half my clients are sellers, half are buyers. And then of the buyers, half are investors. I attract investors because I'm an investor. I don't necessarily like investors. I mean, I like working with numbers where it's not as emotional, but they could get real thin on deals and make it just numbers where it's not as interesting. But my ideal client is someone listing their home, East Dallas, anywhere near Lakewood, White Rock Lake. That's where I am. And I tend to enjoy doing listings with some of these more eclectic homes. I just had an open house at a mid-century modern home, a Janelle home, if anyone knows. It's a real famous architect back from the 50s. And that gets me excited. A lot of people came to that open house. There's multiple offers where you have architecture that's actually interesting and not just, these tract homes up in McKinney. Those are great too, but the homes that have character, there's a story. I love doing those kind of listings.
Yeah. And there's a lot around the Dallas area where you find things in the 30s, 40s, 50s where they
Yeah.
put more than just, just the basic elements and made everyone look the same. They put some thought and they wanted to make it a home, with some
Mhm.
character. There is some value there. I flipped a house not too far from that area over there. This has been 7, 8 years ago. I flipped over 100 houses here in Dallas Fort Worth,
Oh,
but I do
nice.
remember I did one in East Dallas, and we were able to get it moved pretty quick. It just worked out great, and we
Yeah.
really enjoyed it. It was like not even 4 minutes from White Rock Lake. You take that exit from the
Mhm.
highway there, and you go down.
Yeah.
You get to White Rock Lake. So it was on that main road, which is the
Right.
downside, but very
Mhm.
unique property. It was and it was old for sure.
Yes. Yes, and there's opportunity like that. Yeah, for flippers, I've helped flippers in that area, and there's so many opportunities because you have the cast iron plumbing, you have all these old elements to the home, and if you could get in there and do a complete gut and bring it back to life, I mean, the bones of these homes are so nice. Like one example are just the hardwood floors. Hardwood floors from 2025 versus 1955 are night and day, mainly because it's old growth versus new growth. Those old growth oak trees, I mean, those floors are so solid. If you can get a home with those kind of floors, it's like,
They'll
yeah,
they'll outlive you.
oh yeah. Yeah, they're built differently. They're not built like they are today.
I love that. And I appreciate the fact that if you had your choice, you would rather have a connection or something with your client versus just making it strictly a transaction.
Oh yeah.
And I know that that's really kind of important to you because, you and I talking offline, we knew that faith is a really important element,
Yes.
and it's an opportunity for you to serve clients in that space because there's a lot of variables and they're emotionally attached to the house on either side, buyer or seller. And it changes the whole dynamics of it. At what point do we make sure we educate them to where they make sound decisions and not just getting it over their head?
Yes.
How do you see faith, involved in your business?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an interesting story because the whole reason I got into real estate, besides just the potential to make money, was there was a need in my church. I was doing full-time sales, and then because I was people knew that I was in sales. We would talk, and I realized there wasn't really a go-to realtor in my church that can help. There was a commercial guy, but no one residential. So I said, well, I think I could be some help to a lot of my congregation. So I got licensed, and about half my clients ended up being church friends. And because I was a first-time home buyer at that point, and a number of my friends in church were also first-time home buyers. And so I was able to I just attracted people like me who were buying their first home. And it was great because we were not only able to talk about the transaction, but we're able to pray. We're able to fellowship, because where you live in terms of God's sovereignty is really important. God places people in certain neighborhoods for a reason. Like your neighbors that live next to you, they're there for a reason. And so it was a wonderful opportunity for us not just to consider what's the right price point, but pray, fellowship, consider, okay, is this near other members of the church? Are you near them? Is it something that's going to be like, is this where the Lord is calling you? Essentially, because it's a big decision. And not just financially, but even for God's move on the earth. So that really inspired me because as I started helping these church members, we we really I got to be a part of that big decision. And of course, to me, I just like getting people a good deal. So if I was able to help my friends in the church save a lot of money and not make a big disastrous decision, I mean, because people can rush into things and it's not a good solution. And so us being able to consider and pray and even fellowship with leadership in the church of like, hey, is this a good place? What do you all think? The ones who have been around getting their input was so learning how to do that and helping my clients do that was a big deal. And I think we don't really know how to fellowship in the sense of, we're American, we're independent. It's like, I'm going to do what I do, which is fine. But man, I've been saved from making major mistakes just by stopping and saying, you know what? I should maybe talk to a mentor, someone older than me in the church that has some life experience. And that has saved me again and again from making big mistakes, but also just directing me in just a good path. So it's been very dynamic in that way. And it's even caused my posts. If you go through my Instagram, you'll see my posts. I talk about it a lot. Last week, there's a one in my church. She's migrating to France, to Europe, and we need to sell her home. So I wrote a whole story, Christian missionary, a deal of the week. We need to help sell this home so she could migrate to Europe for God's move. This kind of thing where it's a real story, and I'm not only helping her sell a home, but have her be free from encumbrances so she could go serve the Lord in Europe.
Sure. And have the freedom to pursue those opportunities and be able to, build the body somewhere else. I think that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Most of us look at, home sales as economic, financial, emotional, but you're
Yeah.
really tying into the spiritual element. And obviously most agents don't.
Yes.
Yeah. And certainly had relationships and even some of my church members and people like that, where we look at a house and it's like, it looks good to us, but what does God say, right?
Right.
What does he say? So it's an opportunity for
Yeah.
us to pray through that. And
Yeah.
that's definitely an element that most agents don't ever get into or experience that space. I think that's amazing, connection and opportunity there.
Yes.
And you don't get to do that with investors. There's not much spiritual element to it. I mean, there should be. We should have it in all of our life, right? Because that's a big purchase still.
Yeah.
But a lot of us just run out and do everything on our own and don't really even consider God.
Right. I mean, even just stopping to pray, it forces you to like, well, God, I mean, I'm seeking first your kingdom. And even in this decision, in this financial decision, and even just taking the time just to stop yourself by praying forces you to consider. And it's not always good to rush into something. Even taking that time can, yeah, like I said, save you from making a mistake. Yeah, so it's a good practice. I mean, of course, in big decisions like buying a home, but even going to the minutia of just the small little decisions throughout the day, of course, if you're not stopping in the big decisions, you're definitely not stopping in the small ones. So it's a good place to start is in those big decisions.
And I'm sure we'd all love to be missionaries and give away all of our services and do everything for free, but we have to build a business and you
Yeah.
have to have, I know, a growth mindset when you're building a business, right? You have a purpose. What are we doing? What's our drive? And most agents are not making it today. There's a very small percentage of them that are even selling enough real estate to even stay in business.
Yeah.
You are one of those. So at some point, you had to get into the growth element and do
Right.
more than just a transaction a month. We have to do a lot more than that in order to be able to, continue to grow ourselves and be able to take care of our family. Because, you mentioned to me, your wife is actually a PA, a doctor, practically a doctor. And she actually has stepped down from that to stay home, which is honorable. For me talking to you, I say that's honorable. I know a lot of the world today says that's a terrible idea.
Mm.
But I
Yeah.
would really do anything if I could reach a point for my wife to stay home because I got 4 kids at home and she wants to stay home. But, unfortunately to stay where we are and how things are, we have to continue to both work. So
Yes.
you have your doctor wife staying home with the children. How has that affected you guys? I mean, y'all made the decision together. How's that working out?
Oh, the most important thing we can do is our children. I mean, our calling is really, what are our children going to be? How are they going to grow up? And these formidable years, basically 2 to 3 years old to 12, 13 years old, I mean, it's so critical. And we feel like the best person to impart the right values, the right even habits, even training the children from youngsters to form these character traits to have a good moral compass and have these good life habits. It starts at a very young age. And we realize that the best person to instill those values is the mother. And so for her to do that, she needs to be at home. And we were just, thank God, we met in a Bible school, and so we had similar vision for our life in that Bible school, that our whole life is for God's purpose. And so we've had similar viewpoints, and it just happened to be that surrounding our children, we also had those same views. And so she just had the grace and to quit, and I'm doing enough business to make it happen. And, for any guys out there, considering the same thing, it's kind of like, well, you just got to step it up. And when that calling comes, you may have to make a little bit of sacrifice and not buy that boat or that motorcycle or whatever the lifestyle is. So there is sacrifice, but also leveling up, and I'm speaking to men out there, I mean, also women, but leveling up. So if there is that calling, you can just rise to the occasion. And it's been that much more of a fire in my belly to get out there and get after it. So my wife can not only be at home, but she also wants to homeschool. So not all women can do that, to stay at home and a homeschool. So if she has that kind of strong conviction, I'm like, man, I better do everything I can to make that happen. And it's just really worked out.
So unfortunate, some can be put in that same position and that just still does not drive them to take care of business, unfortunately. Some just always have to be told what to do.
Yeah.
But to have that drive and energy. So you've got growth and a growth mindset, and you like helping others grow. So what does that mean? What does that talk to you about when we talk about a growth mindset and then helping others grow?
Yeah, that's good. The growth, it's almost year over year, I've been growing anywhere from 10 to 30%, growing my business, especially because I've only been full-time 4 years, and I've hit Icon the last 3 years, which is basically the top 5% of the 85,000 EXP agents in terms of production. And, my view is, if you're not growing, you're dead. So you have to be growing to actually have, I don't even know how you would put it, but to show that you're actually going towards a goal, there has to be that trajectory upward. And so surrounding myself with the right people at EXP Realty, that's why I made the switch. Because anyone I spoke to at EXP that was really crushing it, which are quite a few agents, they're willing to share. They're willing to share their secrets. Most brokers I would speak to previously, they told you something, but if you're like, hey, so how are you growing your business? They wouldn't let that secret out. But most agents who are doing well at EXP, they would just share with me. And so I realized, you know what, I not only do I want to go on in a good way myself, but there's something about helping others, and it's better to give than receive. And I know I've learned that just helping young believers, helping them grow in their spiritual life has been a big mantra for me. It's been the same in with ones that I've brought to my team. And it's so fulfilling. It's so fulfilling. It's like, okay, I don't want you to be a cog in a wheel. I want you to be an entrepreneur, to have your own business. And so how can I do that? And essentially I just lead them into what I've been doing and don't hold back. And hey, if they steal some of my secrets, good. The sea is big. There's so many fish out there. It's like, steal my secrets. Yes, I want you to be successful. And if I'm really good at that, they should be doing better than I am. It's just extremely rewarding having that not only growth mindset for myself, but even bringing others into what I'm doing and hopefully have them do it better than I am.
Yeah, there's a competitive mindset in that space where people don't share. And I'll tell you kind of where, I think about the psychology of real estate and how it's affected agents and the way they communicate and talk with other agents. And one of the components is for a long time, we were brick and mortar and we would be localized. That's
Yeah.
really an effective part of doing this is that you might have a building, you have a localized system, you might be in a Coldwell Banker, you might be in a KW, you might be in any of these, and it goes from about, let's say, 20, 30 in an office, to 5, 600 plus, and it's all in the same space. So if you and I are in the same office talking to the same buyers and sellers in a very small, isolated local area, we would not share with each other. And
Right.
that's the problem with the way they set up these systems. There are good things about what they've created because they do have the ability to create some community in that space, even if they're not sharing. But they
Sure.
do have the competitive edge where they say, I don't want to share what I'm doing because I don't want you copying me because we're in the same buyers and sellers. That's the way they think. They think very scarce.
It's
They have a
scarce.
scarcity mindset.
Yep.
You're
Mhm.
referring to, and I'll say it this way, this is going to ring true and you'll be able to appreciate it. I can teach you everything that I do, and you're not going to be Shaune Corbett.
That's right.
And Evan, you and we have a lot of things in common, but I'm
Mhm.
not you. And the
Yeah.
way that you approach things and talk with people is not the way that I would, even if I copy exactly what you're doing. So
Mhm.
we have nothing to lose by educating and helping other agents be better at what they do. And
Yes.
that's the reason why I have this podcast sharing with everybody out there. And I have a Facebook group where I share anything that I have come up, or I'll teach a negotiating tip, or here's the market, here's how we're going to address it. I feel like I could give all that away, and I'm not competing with any of them. I don't see it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So I do appreciate that you have that openness and willing to say, "Hey, I'm here to help," and you're probably coming a little bit more spiritual than just even the psychological element. Like there's no reason why I want to hold you back. We're not going to have the same buyer. I'll tell you another really good example. This will ring true to you. Do you have a newsletter that you send out?
Not a newsletter, but I do updates. Yeah, but not in the way of a newsletter.
Okay. Your updates are coming from you. I will not have your buyer or seller list. So you can send out the update and I can send out the exact same update and we have a completely different list. That's the way I think agents need to really think through this. They get so caught up in, I don't want to copy someone else's newsletter or system or things. You have a totally different group of clients that you're communicating with. And if you're
Yeah.
talking to more than 3 or 4,000, you probably got too many anyway.
Yeah.
We need to get down to a group that we know everybody by name, they know us by name, and we can build that relationship.
Yep.
I know you've got some big interests out there. You came from sales, you went from selling copiers to selling houses. Probably things are in common. There are probably some things in common. You're still dealing with people.
Yep.
Certainly, most of it is probably not in common, but there's certain elements in the way that we talk and communicate. How do you improve yourself in the sales space? What would you advise other agents?
Yeah.
Books, Audible, things like that.
Oh yeah, sales books. What from the very beginning when I started with Xerox, I they had this books. It's called The Challenger Sale.
Challenger sale. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so they did a systematic study of which personality type, or you could not just personality type, but type of salesman strategy was the most effective, where they continued to rise even though the other salespeople were going down. So, despite the negative situation, the recession, which one prevailed? And above and beyond, by far, was always the challenger sale. The others, the lone wolf, the friendship person, like the relationship guy. I forget the others, but they did not do as well. And especially the relationship maker, they did the worst, which was interesting finding. And so reading this book, I realized, what is a challenger sale? Okay, it's the person that goes in there that knows about their business, the pain of their business related to whoever has the role. Say you're talking to the chief financial officer. This is more towards business to business, but you're talking to the CFO, issues with what could be those issues and how could you challenge them to think about their business in a different way. So that it helped me to realize me just going and being their friend and trying to be a cool guy, that's not going to help them solve their problem, because at the end of the day, they have pain. And you need to bring them through what's called the pain funnel, like Sandler Training talks about. That's another book, Sandler Training. It's this pain funnel where you have to bring them to the point where they feel their own pain, they verbalize it, and then you put a number, a price to that pain. if it continues. And I learned that actually the way to move the needle and to actually solve someone's problem was the most effective way to continue to get sales and grow your sales, to get the deal through the funnel. And I didn't realize that outside of reading that book. So what I saw is I have to read these sales books to understand how these successful people were able to thrive in a really negative market. The same with Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon, right? He interviewed the most successful people of the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. And he found out what's the similar attributes of what makes these people successful. Well, it's all about their mindset and how they think. So understanding, getting into the minds of these successful people, it's like you're there next to them. And if you're able to implement even just one thing from each book you read, man, you're able to just level up your sales ability. And those books have really formed, I would say, my ability to think in a way that I wouldn't think myself. We think we know until you read these books and you realize, oh, I don't know. I don't know, you know. One book, the main book I recommend to any new sales guy is How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale
Yeah.
Carnegie. That's one of my favorites because we're in an age of people just don't know how to connect in a human way. And
Yeah.
that book trains you how to forget the sale, just be genuinely interested in that person, listen to them, ask interesting questions about them, about their passions, like using the Ford method. I don't need to get into it, but look up the Ford method. Basically, family, occupation, recreation, their dreams, and listen to them. And you would be shocked. In the book, it says you could have a conversation where they talk 90% of the time. And at the end of the conversation, they're like,
They like you more.
this was the best conversation I've ever had.
Yeah.
And
And
yet
then
they
you
were doing
didn't
all the
even say
talking.
anything. Yeah. I love that. No, that's absolutely true. Getting them to talk about themselves and their experiences and who they are and why they are the way they are. What's motivating you? What drives you?
Yeah,
And really addressing those spaces is going to help you build the relationship and understand the client better for sure. And certainly going to increase your saleability, right?
yeah,
Um,
I think so.
so you do some real estate investing, and that probably allows you to be able to talk real estate investor language with investors. Does that sound pretty accurate?
For sure. Because I'm an investor, short-term rental, long-term rental, and it's I was able to talk to investors before I became an investor, but it just wasn't as effective. It's kind of like trying to sell a home without ever purchasing a home yourself. It's very similar in the investor world because they know if you're green or if you don't know what you're talking about, and it's really because not every real estate agent is good with investors because if you don't know how to talk about cap rate, cash on cash, the ROI, looking at the data, the numbers, it's they could kind of see through it because it's not emotional, so it's not just you talking about the features and benefits of the house. So that's it. That's helped me tremendously, and also reading investor books, reading about the market, and I mean, I would say to any agent, you don't even if you're not an investor, if you want to work with investors, if you just read Bigger Pockets, get on the podcast, read those, listen to the podcast, get into the Bigger Pocket world as one example, you'll be able to start to understand how these investors think because that's what they're reading. So you can get in their mind by reading for sure. It's better if you invest yourself, but if you're not there, just get into what they're reading. And yeah, Bigger Pockets has helped me quite a bit.
Most of the agents that I talk to that are, exceeding maybe 100 transactions or hit icon as you describe in your situation, that top 5%, almost all of them have investor as a part of their portfolio because their turnkey operation and understanding the way they do things, you can do things much faster, more efficiently, and accomplish more with them than you can with the emotional buyers.
Yes.
Maybe it's not as rewarding, but it's definitely more turnkey and faster, especially when you understand what they're doing. Um,
Yes.
where they smell it and know it is when you provide them opportunities that don't make sense. And it's because you don't know, you
Because you
know,
don't know.
yeah, you
Yep.
just don't know. So that my best tip is to connect with someone that does know, like Evan, right? And you go to Evan and say, Evan, I've got a buyer, they want to buy this property. And you can look at it and say, well, the property doesn't have ARV opportunity for flip, and it doesn't have a 1% rule to rent. Nothing does, but, just in simple math, we're still pretty far off on, you're going to be holding a pretty high mortgage payment in order to get close to the rent. So it won't work either. And
Right.
being able to educate and understand those type of things. And it's not for everyone. I always tell people,
Yeah. It's not.
I do probably about 20% or so off market. Okay. And that's a whole different language. And the conversations and language I have with them is nothing like I would ever have with retail. And I don't teach off market directly. I mean, it's just not a space, I think, for real estate agents in general. It's for those that are in the investor space that understand the language and understand how it works. But it's a whole
Yeah.
different type of experience.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And to get, like, I'm working with someone now, they want to get into a community as an investment, and all the homes that were coming in this community he wasn't liking. So I was like, you know what? I just have to go directly to the sellers, send an email, got a response, toured the home, and we're working on the contract today, actually, getting under contract. And it's over $1 million property in Dallas. But you have to think outside the box, especially
Yeah.
working with savvy buyers like this buyer. He's a developer and he's much more savvy and he has particular tastes. So it's like, well, there's not many options on MLS. So let's just go straight to the source. And then we came across this deal and got a good deal, and it's going to go under contract hopefully today. And so you have to think outside the box, even in how you contact these people. Like, well, I could just call, I could send a text, I could send an email, and you'd be shocked what kind of opportunities are out there. So if you don't have that mindset and you're just like, well, I'm just going to wait for MLS to come through, well, that's not always how investors and investor-minded people find deals. It's usually in that, like you said, the off market or wholesaler, or something that's a bit more complex and not just as straightforward, because everyone sees what's on MLS. But when
Sure.
you go directly to them, to the seller, you don't have all this other competition. So it makes a whole different dynamic.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I mean, you're talking, and not every agent's going to be able to do that or even spend the time or effort. And if they don't get what you see on MLS from you, they'll probably buy it from someone else. You got to keep that in mind too.
Yeah, that's right.
You would have lost the opportunity. All right, well, let me wrap up a couple things. You've got Instagram, you got Facebook. Those are things you are active on. It's Evan Downey Real Estate. That's your tag,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
So we can find you there. And then you mentioned something about you wanted to promote bfa.org. What is that?
Oh yeah, well, my real passion is preaching the gospel and getting the word of God out. That's what I want to do. It's like if I can just do that, I'd be very happy. And BFA is biblesforamerica.org. It's a nonprofit, and their whole goal is to give out the word of God for free to as many people as possible in America.
You say
And
free study Bible. So are they
yes,
giving out Bibles or are they giving out a resource that you can do a study?
both. So they give out a free study Bible. And then they also have resources in how to conduct a study Bible session, like how to have a Bible study using that particular version with the footnotes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's really good. That Bible has changed my life. I've given probably thousands away, and I try to give it away as much as possible. And it's great. It's a really good resource for anyone who wants to get into the depths of the Bible, because Bible is difficult to understand. But this version, especially with the footnotes, open up not just elements of just like history and geography, which are great, but more on how we can experience Christ, how we can enjoy Him in our daily life. It's more on the experience side, which is wonderful, because that's what we need.
That's right. That's what the Great Commission is, right? That's what we're called to do.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Evan, for being transparent, honest, and just being yourself. I really appreciate you getting on the podcast with me.
Sure.
If anyone needs to reach out to him or like to have more information, I'm going to have it posted as well. Until next time, thank you all for joining us on this episode of Real Estate Success DFW. Have a high performance week. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you.
That wraps up another episode of Real Estate Success DFW. I hope you're leaving with new insights that push your real estate career forward. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with fellow agents who's ready to succeed. And if you're interested in working together or have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me directly. My personal phone is 214-228-0383. Let's connect and make real estate success happen together. Until next time, keep pushing forward. I'm Shaune Corbett, and this is the Real Estate Success DFW. Have a high performance week.